It's daytime, by the way. I usually do these at night, but I decided, screw it. Let's do a daytime one.
The Obsessive DP.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Obsessive DP, the show where we go over high-level cinema quality production grade tips. Tips for lighting, tips for lensing, anything DP, but high-level quality. Today, we are going to... Oh, this is a cool one. Today, we're going to go over how to make a studio backdrop in any color you want. And I don't mean one color. I mean any color throughout the shoot. All you have to do is turn a dial. So cool. So cool. Here's me walking through the scene. Crappy iPhone footage. Awful sound. So I'm going to walk through it as I walk through it. So here I am walking and talking about our Flanders monitor. AM210, beautiful monitor, has false color on one of the buttons. So helpful on set to know exactly what you're getting when you have a monitor this big. You have the tools like false color and waveforms, etc. Now there's my laptop, that doesn't matter. There is a Skypanel S30 controller. So the Skypanel S30 is actually right under this 6x. The reason we only got a 6x is because we didn't need anything that big. We're dealing with really tight shots on our characters. It was actually for a ring shoot, so really tight shots on these rings. So using this S30, that's all we needed. So we have the S30, the 6x. We actually had a little bit of opal because the 6x had full grid. And if you know how full grid works, it actually has these little lines. And the little lines were showing up in our shot. I thought we were going to work with more of a depth of field thing, so it would be out of focus, but unfortunately it was a little bit in focus, so we put this opal on top. The opal helped to make those lines not as apparent. This is the cool part. So here's the controller. Watch what happens when I turn this dial. It starts, voila, changing color. And I know this looks pretty bad looking at behind the scenes of this, but look at the monitor. Look at the actual final effect of it. Like, it is funny just looking at this scene. You have these like super awful looking, barely colored backdrop, but actually looking at the footage, this is what you have. Looks way better, right? So this was as wide as we can go. I didn't even know we were going this wide. I thought we planned to not go this wide, but that's why you should always rent a little more than you need, because on the day, the director gets creative, the producer gets creative, the client gets creative and wants to do more specific things. Here's the cool part. See, it starts changing color now. It looks good. The separation's nice. We used a 100mm macro lens. The 100mm actually brought our background closer to us, so we were able to spread out that background. If we're using a 50mm, which we tried, the background wouldn't have been as big in frame. It's just how lenses work. You can bring the background closer with the lens, you can shoot it back with the lens. It depends on the makeup of the lens, depends on the millimeter of the lens. This was a macro, so it was able to get some super tight shots, but I loved the ability when the director said, go change the color of the background. I was like, all right, and pushed a button, versus bringing in a new seamless paper and rigging it and pulling it down. There's definitely drawbacks to this. You need a lot of light, because let's say we dimmed down this S30, just dimming it, you lose your saturation. So it starts looking dingy and you start seeing more of like the grid in the backdrop. So you need to basically have that S30 cranked, and to do that, you needed a lot of light on our actors too, or else the background would just blow up, which is kind of doing on this color, but that color wasn't manicured. This color was more manicured. It was one that they wanted. You know, the edges are vignetting, and that was a little bit of a drawback. We actually had an issue where one of the sides was more saturated than the other, just because of our lights. Here, I'll show you the diagram. Yes, here's our diagram. Camera here, obviously. It was a very tight shot of a hand, so this character isn't exactly what it looked like, but whatever. We had a lot of black flags here. All the black flags were just to make a dark light scenario, because that's what you want for jewelry. You want a really nice bright light, and then you want dark. It really makes the metal and the diamonds and all the shininess look good when there's dark light. If it was just light, you wouldn't really be able to see the sparkle, or you wouldn't be able to see the depth of the niceness of it. And having a dark portion of the ring and a light portion of the ring looks nice. Our key here was a Joker 800. We were shooting through a 4-foot octa with just full diffusion, And then we actually didn't do this fill. I always have the fill in case we need it, but we actually just used a foam board here for fill. And we didn't have this Lico. We didn't have the budget for 2. I wish we did, because then we would have had 2 edges. But this Lico here was kind of just moving around and like backlighting certain parts of the ring, or making just this cut of light. So it was kind of featuring it, and it was making your eye go there because it was the most lit part of our scene. When you're selling a product, you want that product to pop out, and that's what we tried to do here. Is we tried to make sure that every time it was set up wherever the hand was going to be with the rings on it, that part popped in frame versus the character. We don't care about our actor. Our actor is just secondary. You want your product to be king, and that's what we did here with this Lico. That was our just edgy special product light. We actually didn't use a menace arm. We just popped the DP Lumi panel up here for just a nice backlight, edged them out of the background, and then obviously here was our background with the Skypanel S30 shooting into a 6x6 full grid. Sometimes we put a little bit of opal on top of that full grid to soften the lines in the grid. Let's check out just a few behind the scenes shots. Really, this is just the main shot. You're seeing everything here. Oh, we actually did pop another panel here for a little more key in our subject, because our subject was a little down, because we were dealing with that ratio of the backdrop needed to be pretty bright, but we don't want the background to be king in frame. We just want it to be the backdrop, but it had to be bright to keep that saturation in how we set this up. Camera obviously here, lights, monitor, looks good. How to do this better? So I mentioned at one point that one side of the backdrop was more saturated than another side. Really, when you're doing these things, even though our shot never got wider than this, even though our shot never got wider than that, we should have planned for the director wanting it to be even wider. Getting a 12 by or a 20 by, something huge for the backdrop, probably would have been a better route, and then getting multiple sky panels. I think that was what I learned from this, is if at least we had 2 sky panels shooting into different sides of that backdrop, then if we're getting light pollution on one side of the backdrop and it's getting desaturated because our key light is actually hitting the backdrop, we can add more saturation to that side and then pull back on the saturation on the other side, and it would have evened it out a little more. And the vignetting of it, that would also help, especially if you had 4, let's say you had a 12 by and you had 4 S30s in different sides of a 12 by, then you can hit every corner and you won't have that vignetting that we had here. I honestly don't mind the vignetting. A lot of backdrops have a vignette anyway, and it just softens it, makes it look vintage. It makes it look nice. That's it. Comment down below if you have any questions, if I forgot to say something, forgot to cover a part of this lesson. I hope you guys are enjoying these. I hope you're subscribing and clicking the bell, and stay obsessed.